Hey up everyone, welcome to the Rugby League History channel. I hope you're all well on this Saturday. Tonight's video is going to be my 2020 season review for the New Zealand Warriors. I've done reviews for about 5 or 6 of the other clubs. I'm working my way up from 16th place up to 1st place. Obviously I can't do a full season review for the club still going. But tonight I'm going to do the New Zealand Warriors. Before I get into the review, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, make sure that you're subscribed by clicking the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you get an email when I do a new video. Anyways everyone, let's start this review off. New Zealand this year finished 10th, they missed the finals. The record for the season was 8 wins, 12 losses, a points differential of minus 115, and in their last 10 games to close out the year they had 5 wins and 5 losses. Now going into their actual season proper, they started the year off quite poorly. Before the year even began, I remember watching a clip of the owner or one of the shareholders of the New Zealand Warriors coming out and saying that we're a bit of a laughing stock. People are laughing at us. Even when we release a new jersey, people are laughing at us. Let's go out there and put a bit of pride in the club and in the jersey that we wear, and let's say in the respect of the other clubs and the other clubs' fans. But as I said, the year got off to a really bad start for New Zealand, and also that was coupled with the COVID situation as well, which I'll get into. So to start off the year, they lost 20 points to 0 against Newcastle. At the start of the year, I had predicted New Zealand to come 15th on the ladder. That's before the ball was kicked. I predicted the Gold Coast to come last, but I predicted New Zealand to finish just above them. And in that early part of the year, it looked like New Zealand were going to live up to that prediction. They lost their next game against Canberra, and then we had the COVID situation where the competition was shut down for, I think, 8 weeks in total. And coupled with that, New Zealand, there was talks about them either having to pull out of the competition altogether, or they were going to have to find a base to stay at here. They chose to stay locally at the Central Coast around Gosford, and they were going to play their home matches at Gosford. And in coupled with that as well, some of the players returned home to New Zealand, and the others that chose to stay in Australia were not allowed to return home and see their families. Now in the first half of the year, New Zealand, you could see, played quite poorly. They only won 3 of their first 11 matches, and in that time period, Stephen Kearney, who was the head coach of New Zealand, was terminated from his position, and Todd Payten was put in there as interim coach. Now after Todd Payten was installed as interim coach, results started to get a lot better, and towards the end of the year they had a win ratio of 50%. They had 5 wins and 5 losses. They put a win record together of 4 wins in a row. They're on the verge of making the top 8. They were just outside the top 8, and for the New Zealand fans out there, unfortunately they fell up short. They needed to beat Cronulla to stand any chance of making the top 8, and they lost that match at Kogarah Oval 22 points to 14. But in a way, they did close out the year with a good performance against Manly. They won that 40 points to 28. Now going back to that COVID situation, they also had a lot of loan players come in, because naturally some of the New Zealand players couldn't come over and vice versa. So you had the likes of Jack Hetherington, you had a couple of players from Parramatta, Daniel Alvaro, George Jennings play a couple of loan matches for New Zealand. And I'm just going to go into their players now and some of the stats, because I'm going to tell you my opinions of who the best players for New Zealand were for the year. Definitely Roger Tuivasa-Sheck is up there as one of the best players of the year for New Zealand. Peter Hiku, he finished the year as the top try scorer with 8. The top try assist was Cody Nikorima. He had a good year. He had 15 try assists. Peter Hiku was second in that category. Now the runs was Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, 398. Run meters, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, 3,974 meters he run. Line breaks, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck with 8. Offloads was Jazz Tavunga. Tackle bus, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. So as you can see, a lot of the stats are being led by him. Toru Harris, he had the most tackles. If I was going to go into some of the players though that I think have been good this year, obviously Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, Peter Hiku was another one. I think Elisa Katoe had a good debut season. And then you had the likes of Adam Blair, he was good. Toru Harris was good. Adam Pompey was improved this year. They had some good performers, but overall, it was a disappointing and a bit of a frustrating year for New Zealand because in some ways, they think that they did get close to the top 8. They did finish about 6 points out. There's been talk on social media and and I featured in my Nupty of the Week award where there's some people that think there's a conspiracy that they don't want a New Zealand team to do well. There's issues with the sponsorship with Vodafone and Telstra. Maybe that's the reason why they're making it. I can tell you why that New Zealand didn't make the top 8 this year, and it was because of their first half of the year. They only won 3 of their first 11 matches. They were down towards the bottom of the ladder, and you're not going to be making the top 8 when you're down there. And that's the be all and end all of their season. They didn't start off well. Maybe if they would have had a better start of the year, maybe things would have been different, but that's just the cold hard facts you could see. Now, going into some of their best wins and probably some of their worst moments of the year, I definitely see some of their worst moments of the year would be obviously the first round loss against Newcastle. And then they also had some hidings in between there and the rest of the year. They lost 40 points to 12 against South. The next week, 50 points to 6 against Melbourne. In round 10, 46 points to 10 against Cronulla. So there was a couple of hidings there. I think definitely one of their best performances of the year was when they played at Scully Park in Tamworth. They beat Newcastle 36 points to 6 there. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck got 2 tries in that game. I think also their performance against Canterbury, they were dead and buried in that match. You could see Canterbury were out in front and New Zealand fought their way back to win 20 points to 14 when they were on that run there of victories. And I also think that match against New Zealand where they won 26 points to 16 over Brisbane, there was a lot of emotion there. And that's when they were based at the Central Coast Stadium and they won there at the Central Coast. Now going into next year for a bit of their crystal ball. Ever since New Zealand have been in the competition, they've always been very hard to pick. And I think next year will be no different. A lot of people had New Zealand towards the bottom end of the table this year, and they surprised a lot of people by nearly making the top 8. And then the year before that, they were finalists. So it's a bit difficult to tell how New Zealand's going to go next year. They are letting go of a few players, and they have signed a couple of players. They've got Nathan Brown as the new head coach starting next year. He's a proven head coach in first grade. He's coached St George and he's coached Huddersfield over in England. I think New Zealand will be aiming to make the top 8 next year, and there's no reason why they can't do it. There's no reason why New Zealand can't make the top 8 next year. I don't see them making the top 8 next year. I think that they'll finish maybe 9th or 10th, but it remains to be seen. It all depends. There's still a long time in the off-season to go. There's still a chance to recruit a couple of other players. And it'll be interesting for the New Zealand Warriors fans and the club to see where they go next year. But anyways, everyone, that's my review for the New Zealand Warriors 2020 season. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, click that like button. And if you are enjoying what I'm doing, click that subscribe button if you haven't already subscribed. Anyways, everyone, I'm going to get out of here. Stay tuned for my next season review, which is tomorrow night. It's going to be the Gold Coast club that I'm going to be reviewing. Anyways, everyone, I'll catch you all later. Ta-ra now.